I spoke to President Erdogan for an hour today. Turkey does, of course, have justified security interest, but I believe, as does the federal government, that the offensive must be stopped in view of the grave humanitarian consequences.
DW reporter William Noah Glucroft joining me now in studio, and William has more on this. Now, look, Chancellor Merkel is known to be cautious when it comes to getting involved in any sort of international conflicts. What do you make of this phone call?
Cautious is to put it mildly. I mean, Angela Merkel has been in power for almost 15 years. There's almost no examples of her taking a leading or proactive role, especially when it comes to foreign policy, especially when it comes to military policy. Not only Angela Merkel, but Germany as a country does not tell other countries what to do, given its history of occupying other countries.
And yet this phone call.
So this is incredible. And on top of that, the threat that Germany faces from Turkey, of the refugees that Turkey is keeping there as part of an EU-Turkey deal, and that Angela Merkel still makes this phone call despite the risks, the political and just PR risks of how it looks, is really can't be understated.
Now, we should mention, apparently this phone call was requested by Erdogan himself, but Merkel is saying these things on that phone call. Now, before that phone call, Germany and other countries had also announced that they would halt weapons exports to Turkey. Here's how President Erdogan responded today. Take a listen.
Despite the fact that we've been saying this for months, there are those who threaten us with economic sanctions and arms embargoes. Those who think they will turn Turkey away from its path have been mistaken and are mistaken.
Well, William, the Netherlands, France, Norway, Germany, and others, they've also announced an end to weapons exports to Turkey. Yet all of those countries, interestingly, they're NATO allies. I mean, they're supposed to be working together, right?
NATO allies, but also EU members. Sweden, a NATO partner, not a member, but a NATO partner, they've also called for a common EU response. It's fascinating to see what's happening now. Turkey, we cannot state this enough, is a NATO member. They have the same rights, the same obligations as every other NATO country. And this has been a long brewing conflict within NATO about what to do with Turkey as Turkey tilts ever more to dictatorship, to losing its democratic institutions under Erdogan. And NATO prides itself in being an alliance of democracies. So we're seeing maybe for the first time a real hard split within NATO itself and between NATO and the EU.
Let's talk about the EU. We're also hearing that the European Union is preparing a common response to Turkey. Do you think we're seeing Europe stepping in now to fill the power vacuum that's been left by the United States?
You know, the United States occupies such a huge amount of power in the world. It would be hard to see how even a bloc as big as the European Union could really step into that after decades of sort of shirking its responsibilities on the international, on the world scale. But we see that's where we're going. The United States, de facto...
Trump threatening sanctions, but nothing yet.
Trump has threatened sanctions, but also at the same time de facto greenlit this operation by pulling U.S. troops out of harm's way to allow Turkey to go in. But let's not forget, the U.S. is the real power broker here. It's the U.S. that provides most of the arms to Turkey. I mean, 2,400 main battle tanks Turkey has. Those are all from the U.S. So just how much power and influence EU and or European NATO members can have in this situation really remains to be seen. It's going to be fascinating to see how it develops.
DW reporter William Noah Glucroft, thank you very much.